Okay, we are straight up 1 o'clock Eastern, and it's time to begin our HEM webinar, Higher Education Marketing, titled Demystifying Hashtags, How They Work in Social Media. My name is Scott Cross, and I'm HEM's North America Regional Manager. I am typically joined by Archie Pollock in Glasgow, but he's actually at my side. We're at a conference here. There he is. So we're happy to be doing this side by side, but the real star of the show, if you will, but just as we were saying earlier, our subject matter expert it's a real treat to have along with us and providing for you a bulk of the content today. Our senior social media specialist here at Higher Education Marketing, Natalia Espinel. Hi, Natalia.
Sorry, hi everyone, my mic was muted, and thank you for having me.
Of course. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it. And we're looking forward to this. This is a lot of fun digging into hashtags. We'll talk about that in a second. Let's get through some logistics first. First of all, we have your microphones on mute throughout the webinar, and we apologize for that. It just helps us to provide the content more fluidly. At the end, though, we will open up to answer your questions. And the way you can submit a question at any time during the webinar, just type them in as they come to mind for you. You'll see in your GoToWebinar menu, there's a little place called questions, and you can enter a question in at any time. And near the end of the webinar, then we'll open those up and we'll answer those for you. You will receive a recording of this presentation as well as the deck, the slide deck of what we're providing. So that'll come to you in your email in the next couple of days. And for that, I think we'll go ahead and get started. That's where we are. Really just an overview of today's presentation. We're going to cover just kind of some of the basics of social media marketing and the core elements of a good social post. And then we're going to really focus in on hashtags. And this is, it's kind of amazing, all the content we're going to go into on this, what seems like maybe a kind of a narrow or niche topic. It's actually quite broad, quite important, quite very, very interesting. Not just the history and hashtags 101, but the importance of hashtags, the levels, the types, pro tips on usage and application of hashtags, and how to use them in your school's social media. We'll go over some do's and don'ts, and then we'll recap our work together. Generally, want to talk about the benefits of integrating social media in your marketing efforts. This is done above and beyond kind of just posting for the sake of posting. You know, and many schools, understandably, if your resources are slim, that's often kind of, you feel maybe all you can do. But the clear reason you're here is because you want to do it with some more intent, with a little more strategic tactic put to it. So what we're going to be talking about are applying these things, these hashtags, in a way that really have intent and strategy behind them. And this is done because it's important to build brand awareness and brand recognition of your school, of your school's brand. People search for a prospective school using social media, and often they might search by hashtags. So it's important and that you do this well and correctly. You can really open up the awareness and visibility of your school's brand. It's also designed, social media is designed to draw inbound traffic. That means traffic coming inbound to your website. So by providing links in social posts any chance you can, that of course is designed to draw them to basically to your house, right? You want to bring them in, open the front door and say, come on in, have a look around. The big idea here is to reach potential students and ultimately get more leads. Yes, social media can be used to get leads. Primarily because the folks that you come across in social and the folks who might click on your link in social media are genuinely interested. They're interested and they're clicking because they're choosing to come in. It's not an ad that's put before them. Typically it's because, you know, organically or authentically they liked your post and they want to learn more about you. So that's a very good potential student lead. And all of this kind of combines together to help improve your search engine ranks for your website. The visibility of the links in social, the clicks on the links in social, the increased organic traffic, that improves your SEO value or ranking on your website. So now is the perfect time to bring in Natalia, because we're going to have you kind of talk about really the building of a good, strong social media post.
Great, thank you. So before we jump into hashtags, we need to understand what makes a good social media post. So at HEM, we always think about setting a clear objective or a goal for the post you're creating. So before you even start writing, you need to think about what you want to accomplish with that post. So be it more brand awareness or generate leads or just like tell people what your school is about. So just set a clear objective, first of all. And then once you have that in mind, you can go ahead and choose a powerful image. So something that is eye-catching, but also that speaks for your brand. And if you have any branding elements, as you see in the photo here, go ahead and add them, right? You want people to know right away that it's a photo or a post about your social media and not just like a random photo. So once you have a powerful image and a clear goal, you want to write compelling copy. I would say compelling copy doesn't necessarily need to be long. I think it's better if it's maybe not too short, but short and tight. It's tight, it's readable, it's easy to understand, and it communicates something clear. When things are too long, I feel people find it easy to scroll down. They're not that likely to engage. So I would recommend something that's tight, compelling, and direct. Do add a call to action, and if needed, of course, add a link to a landing page that you want to direct them to. And then after all this, the hashtags come in. So once you have your photo, your objective, your copy, your link, then you're going to have to think about which hashtags you want to use, and of course, select the ones that are more appropriate to the post. Just as I will keep repeating today, just make sure the post is relevant. So it speaks about something that your school is offering right now. So something that it's now, and that it speaks to your student, that it keeps a consistent voice, a tone, and that it knows who it's speaking to.
And already with this image, this slide, we've really applied strategy and tactic to a post, and this kind of including these 5 elements, to me, makes it a more strategic and intentional post on behalf of the school, as opposed to just posting for posting's sake. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's fun to share just the day-to-day of schools, but I think you can get much more if you know you want to give an intention to that post. So if you're posting a photo of students and their daily activities, you're not just showing their daily activities, you're showing also what your school is offering, right? So it's good to think about all these things.
Awesome. Okay, so as we like to do in our webinars, we have polls, and so we're going to ask some questions of you, the audience. And in this case, they're kind of fun, interactive, well, open polls, like quiz type polls. We want to have you take a guess at when you think Facebook started using hashtags. Was it in 2007, 2013, or 2010? So we're going to launch that poll for you and you can just click on which you think is correct. And I'll admit, I think I got this wrong the first time we discussed it in Italian. We'll see how folks do. It's not a trick question, but it is interesting.
Yeah.
Right, the votes are pouring in.
We used to think that they're much older, so.
Yeah, and so here are the results. A majority of you say 2010, but they're kind of torn.
That's wrong. It's wrong, but it's not wrong. So it's wrong because Facebook started using them in 2013, but as we see on this timeline, in 2010 it's when they became a thing, right? So to go back a little bit, the first hash symbol was used on the Internet Relay Chat, IRC, and it was used to label groups and topics, and that was back in 1988, so it's a while ago. And then in 2007, Chris Messina took inspiration from this and used the very first hashtag ever on Twitter, which was like hashtag Barcamp. So this was like just him. And then in 2009, Twitter finally introduced hashtags as a search tool. So incorporated them in their system. And then in 2010, it's when they introduced trending topics. And that's also when Instagram was launched and Instagram started using hashtags from the beginning. So if you answered 2010, you were not too far. There was something happening definitely around that year. And then in 2013, that's when Facebook started using them. And then most recently in 2018, LinkedIn introduced hashtags.
Super, thanks.
So yeah, so just to continue there, usually people ask, so why should I use hashtags? Are they useful? Are they worth it? And the answer is yes, you should use hashtags. And here are some reasons why. So they're great because they make your content more discoverable or bring more visibility to your content. They help you build your brand, particularly with branded hashtags. They help you connect with people in your niche, but that are outside your bubble, so outside your direct follower base. And they help you participate in local and global conversations. So if there's something happening in your industry, hashtags are a good way to jump in. And then we have this kind of like 101, right? So now we know we need to use hashtags. So how do we go about them? So using hashtags, it's fairly easy, but there's still a couple of mistakes brands people make that break the hashtag. So I'm just going to go through the basics. So start with a hash symbol. You add your word or your sentence or your words, and you make sure there's no spaces or punctuation between the words. So for instance, here we have higher education. You want it to be bundled up, you want it to be together instead of like adding a space between higher and education. You can include the hashtag within the text or after the message. It doesn't change anything really except for readability. I usually think that if there's too many hashtags within the text, it makes it hard to read. So if you are adding too many, maybe just add them at the end, just to make it easier on the eyes. And then if you're creating a branded hashtag, just make sure it's easy to remember and to spell, because you want your students to remember when they're sharing photos and use it, right? You want student generated content to circulate. So here are some common mistakes brands and people make. So just adding punctuation symbols, question marks, exclamation marks, those won't be counted within the hashtags. What they will do is that they'll break the hashtag and it won't work. So if you wanted a hashtag that was higher education and you add a dash or a period, what it'll do is like it'll break it and then you'll just have higher. Also make sure you spell, you check the spelling. So here, for example, it was supposed to be education and it says educating. And make sure there's no spaces between the words either, because you'll break the hashtag. But make sure there's a space between the two words. So like in the last example here, you have higher education and there's no space. So that's also breaking the hashtag. There won't be any hashtag working there. So as you see on the column on the right, these are like the ways to go. You can have camel case. So add higher and education with uppercases instead of like lowercase, and that works fine. And I find it more and just lowercase. You have like many different words together, like 4 or 5 words. I would say to use uppercase.
Well, and I like what you had mentioned in terms of making it easy on the eyes, like making it easy to digest as a social user. While we might think a 3 or 5 word phrase crunched together in a hashtag is going to be super effective, it might just kind of blur to other people. So that really kind of rings true with me, what you're saying there.
Yeah, exactly. It might look spammy, so people might just feel like scrolling or not reading it, because our attention on social media is so dispersed that we want something that's like attention grabbing rather than something that makes people look interested.
Indeed. Okay. Here we go.
Yeah. So so once again, so as I mentioned, their hashtags are great because they help you generate more engagement. So get more people engaging with your post, but they're also good because they work with the algorithm on platforms like Instagram or TikTok. So for instance, on Instagram, hashtags work to label and categorize content. So they help Instagram understand what your content is about, so that it can serve to their users. So for instance, if you are posting about a language school, so you're adding like hashtag language school or hashtag learn English in Canada, it'll help Instagram serve that content to people who are following similar accounts or who have been looking for accounts that post about those topics, right? So one is good because it generates engagement, and second because it helps the algorithm serve your content to the right people. Great, so now that we've covered the reasons why we should use hashtags, then there is a little math, right, about going about it. So at HEM, we think about 3 levels of hashtags. So level 1, it's hashtags that have been used more than 1 million times. Level 2, it's hashtags that have been used between 100,000 and 1 million times. And level 3, it's hashtags that have been used under 100,000 times. So generally, this is very easy to figure out. But as you may imagine, like hashtags that are more simple or that is just one word are generally used more than the ones that are more complex formulations of hashtags. But it's really easy to find how many times hashtags have been used. So for instance, for Instagram, sorry, for Twitter, yeah, now that it came up. So Twitter, when you go on the platform, it won't tell you exactly how many times the hashtag has been used. But if you want to know, there are other websites like this one. It's called RightTag, that you can use to get an estimate or to understand how many times the hashtag has been used and what hashtags circulate around that hashtag. So for instance, here I look for education. This is the free version, which is fine. And it tells you how many times it has been used, I think, for the past 7 days. So in this case, education, it told me that like there were 229 posts with that hashtag, that it had been retweeted 109 times, and that 43 million people had seen the hashtag. So you can get an estimate of how many people are engaging or seeing the hashtag. And then you can make your decision based on that. For Instagram and TikTok, it's easier. You can do it directly on the platform. So all you need to do is to go to the search bar and start typing your hashtag. So you don't even need to finish typing it. As you see here, I was typing business school, and then it starts telling you directly, so the hashtag you want, then the amount of times it has been used, and then directly underneath it shows you other variations. So for business school, it will be business schools, business school club, business school online. So that's really cool because it allows you to see other options as well. And it is the same with TikTok. It's just that instead of like posts, it says views. So how many people have seen videos that use that hashtag. And then we have Facebook and LinkedIn. So Facebook and LinkedIn are very similar to Instagram and TikTok, but so you have to type your hashtag. It won't show it right away. You need to click on it. And then once you've clicked on it, you'll see that it'll show you for Facebook the amount of people that are posting about it. And then for LinkedIn, the amount of followers.
Okay, so this brings us to our next kind of a poll question. It's associated with levels of reach. So the question is, I should always use hashtags that have been used over 1 million times. So we're going to allow you to kind of vote on that, what you think, based on what we've seen a little bit so far. And then in the answer, we'll really kind of provide you guidance. But let us know what you think. Is it true or false that you should always use hashtags that have been used over 1 million times? Oh yeah, look at that. We're seeing the votes come in.
Oh, great.
Overwhelmingly no. Yeah, false.
That's right. So yeah, you want to aim to have a mix of those 3 levels. Hashtags that are very popular are great, yes, because they're very popular, so it's more likely that more people see them. but because so many people are using them too, your content will get pushed down very quickly. So you can use them, but it's also you can add some variations, as I showed on the Instagram example. So for instance, you're looking for marketing, but marketing is a very big hashtag. So instead of using marketing, if you want to make it more targeted or more niche, you can go down one step on the funnel and do use digital marketing or marketing motivation or marketing school or marketing courses, depending on your content, right? So do use very popular hashtag, but try to have a mix of all those three levels. And ideally, you're trying to put a foot everywhere, or like to put a finger everywhere, and see what works best. So these are the most popular hashtags in the education industry. I feel like it's likely that these hashtags have over 1 million posts. You can use them, but then how do you go about knowing which of this you can use, right? Because we're schools, so which one do I use? So now that you know the levels, it's important to know the types. So we generally go by 5 types of hashtags. So there's location, branded, industry, community, and descriptive. So location refers to your city, the country in which you're in, your neighborhood, a place. So anything that has to do with geographic location. Then you have branded hashtags, which are hashtags that you create for your school or for your brand. So for instance, here I came up with this example, which is a business school called M&A Business School. So I was thinking, okay, so what kind of branded hashtags can I use? So I came up with M&A Business School, but the thing with branded is that you want to have more than just one branded hashtag. So M&A Business School is like your general branded hashtag, but then you can create other variations for other sorts of content. So M&A students, M&A grads, M&A convocation, M&A activities. So for different types of content, you can create different types of branded hashtags so that you keep changing them, but still use a branded hashtag. Then you have industry hashtags, which pretty much refer to your school niche. So in this case will be business school or business students. Then it comes the community hashtags, which is your target market. So hashtag students, hashtag students in Montreal, hashtag students in Canada. So anything that you think your target market is going to be looking for. And then finally, we have the descriptive hashtags, which will change depending to the post you're creating. So if you're posting about a summer day, so hashtag summer day, or if you're posting about business growth, so hashtag business growth. So the descriptive will change mostly, but for location, branded, industry, and community, you can do your research and get an idea of what you will be using.
This is another one of those really valuable slides in the presentation where, again, applying strategy and a lot of forethought to, okay, which hashtags, not just which hashtags should I use, but while breaking it down by location, branded, industry, community, and descriptive, that really helps me kind of realize the breadth of what I can accomplish here with hashtags.
Yeah, exactly. It's very useful because so many times we just go with one of them. So knowing that there's all these options helps you diversify or be more creative.
And just be more visible to, like you say, diversify to people who are searching for in a variety of ways. They might be searching by location, or they might be searching by industry, or they might be searching by descriptive. And by combining maybe those 3, you really are able to maybe reach 3 audiences instead of just one.
Exactly. So like if you think about it, it could also be on where they are on their journey to make their decision. So maybe someone is just at the moment of, oh, I want to study in Montreal. So that's one level of awareness. Then like maybe someone knows that they want a business school, or someone knows that they want to do a marketing course. So like it's really thinking about the different stages in which the person that will find you will be in.
Yeah, that's a great additional point. Okay, I'll let you carry on. Perfect.
Yeah, so okay, so now we know the levels, the types, and now there's this general do's and don'ts. So do make sure your hashtags are active. This is very important because a lot of the time we just hashtag words randomly, and if the words are not used or the hashtag is not used by anyone else, then your efforts are pretty much going nowhere. Do use a mix of all the previous hashtags, so a mix of the levels and a mix of the types, and make sure that they're relevant and that they mean what they should. So what I mean with they're relevant is like, don't just jump on a trending hashtag just because that might bring negative attention, especially if you don't know what the trending hashtag means. So make sure you know what the hashtag means. Make sure you know where it is circulating. And this is fairly easy. So for Instagram, when you go and type hashtag business school, you can click on the hashtag and then you can see all the posts that are shared around that hashtag. So just give yourself an idea. Check your spelling. It's very easy to do because everything is together. And find out which hashtags are trending in your industry. So find out which are trending, but also make sure that they're appropriate to what you're sharing. Not just, again, don't jump into trending hashtags just because. Don't use hashtags unrelated to your post because you want to attract the right profiles, right? You don't want to just reach anyone. Avoid using hashtags that are banned, and there's not too many banned hashtags, but still it's worth checking. If you go on the platform, it'll tell you. Avoid including the same few hashtags with every post. So you have 3 hashtags and you copy paste. Avoid doing that. And don't use hashtags alone. Instead, integrate them with your copy. So think about what we saw at the beginning, this as a package. I've seen images of like students with hashtag students, but you want to know more, right? You want to know what's going on. So add a compelling and engaging copy, and don't hashtag every word because, as I mentioned, it's really hard for the eyes. So if you want to hashtag a lot of words, maybe add them at the end.
Okay, we have our second official poll. We're going to ask you again to vote. So how many hashtags should I use on Instagram? Do you think it's 30 or more? Do you think it's more than 10 but less than 30? Or like in the more like the 3 to 5 range? So we're going to give you the opportunity to vote here as well. Please engage. You're voting anonymously. We'd love to see what you think. The votes are pouring in. Here we go. Thank you all for voting.
Oh, great. Yeah, so you're on the good, you're on the right side. So yeah, so 3 to 5, it's the recommended. And 10, more than 10 and less than 30, it's still great. So recommended is 3 to 5 per post, but data still suggests that if you use more hashtags, you can get a better reach. So what we recommend at HEM is to alternate. So some posts might have 3 to 5, some posts might have 10 to 15. Just make sure it's appropriate, right? Like if it's a post that you're giving a lot of information, and if you add like a lot of hashtags at the end, it might look spammy. So make sure you're integrating them well and that they're relevant. Relevance is key. As long as they're relevant and it speaks to your content, what you're sharing, it's fine. But you don't want to use too many so that your content looks spammy and then people just scroll because it's like, oh, too many hashtags. For TikTok, it's very similar. So 3 to 5. Hashtags are very big in TikTok. TikTok's Discover tab it's organized by trending and popular hashtags. So even though it's 3 to 5, you want to make sure you're using the right ones, right? Because it's very little, but they can bring a lot of viewers. So as with Instagram, TikTok has an algorithm that, like, depending on the hashtags you use, will serve your content to the people that are engaging with that hashtag. So make sure you go and do your research on TikTok. choose 3 to 5, the ones that you think are more appropriate, and use them with your content. With Twitter, so Twitter is a very fast-paced platform. So the recommended is only 1 to 2. Of course, you can use more. It's been shown that brands that use hashtags on Twitter increase engagement by almost 50%. So it's a good thing to do. Use hashtags on Twitter. Again, make sure they're relevant, make sure they're active, make sure people are using them to talk about what you think you're talking about. And I would say with TikTok, just be more specific because it's so fast-paced that the popularity of hashtags changes every minute. So just make sure you select the ones that are more appropriate. For Facebook, we don't generally recommend using hashtags on Facebook, not because it's bad, but because Facebook is not a hashtag-friendly platform. So unlike Twitter and LinkedIn and Instagram and TikTok, Facebook doesn't make hashtags clickable. So as you would see on the other platform, they look like kind of blue and then you can click and see other things. With Facebook, it doesn't work that well. So to find a hashtag, you actually have to look for it. So it's not as effective in bringing more eyes to your content. However, if you have an alumni group or like a class group, they work for grouping content. So if you have an alumni group and then you're doing like TBT or hashtag news, that's when they will be more useful because they will group those kind of posts. And for LinkedIn, it's becoming more and more relevant, more and more popular. Sorry, just make sure they're relevant and keep them professional. LinkedIn is still a professional network, so you want to make sure you're not using hashtags that are not professional. Depending on what your school offers, you want to know, like, so if you're a university and you're targeting students or executive, or you're selling executive programs, or if you're a language school and you want to target professionals that want to learn a language, or if you're a high school and you want to target parents. So just make sure you're using hashtags that are reaching your target persona. And on LinkedIn, now there's like a little window to the left where you will find the recent hashtags or the trending hashtags. And you can also start following hashtags. So when you follow hashtags, it'll start suggesting you the content around those hashtags. And you can see also what other people are sharing.
Yeah, that's helpful. And it's just looking across each of the platforms, it reminds us that people go on the platform and search by hashtag. You know, they really will go into the query and do the search for content on a topic or specific interest. So this really helps us be visible in that search, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the idea is that you are displayed or showed or suggested when people go and look for that hashtag, or even just for the word, because now, as we will see here, semantic keyword search has become more important on social media. So do use hashtags, but also use keywords that you think people will use when they go to search for things. So social media is a really good tool to show people what your school is like or what your selling points are. So make sure when you write your copy and you select your hashtags, you have that in mind, you keep that in mind. And then just going into my final tips, you can also look at your competitors or accounts that post similar content and check what they're doing. Make sure you don't take their branded hashtags because you don't want to use their branded hashtags on your content, but make sure which industry hashtags they're using or community hashtags they're using and see if they're appropriate for your content. You can go ahead and use them. If you have a branded hashtag, I would say monitor it. Make sure no another company in a different industry is not using it, because sometimes, with names, for instance, with the M&A school, you could be using just hashtag M&A and you think, oh, it's only my business school. But then, I don't know, in the food industry, there's a restaurant called M&A, and then you'll see all this content of like food and schools overlapping. So if that's not working, just go ahead and change it or make it more specific. And avoid using the same hashtags over and over again, because the algorithm might penalize you and push your content down. And then finally, I'm just leaving there these three great websites, which are for like doing some hashtag research or just to do how your hashtags are performing. They have free, I believe they have a free option, or they have also paid options depending on what you're, but they're just generally great tools to see how hashtags perform.
And this is a good time to remind our audience that you will all receive this deck in your email in a couple of days. So you'll have these, you don't have to type them down right now. You'll have these in your email very soon. We want to make sure you're able to use these as well. Those are great resources. And I'll go ahead and recap. Let me know how I do. Of course, social media should be a part of your marketing efforts, as we talked about earlier. More than just posting for the sake of posting, really put, in addition to just great moments in the day of the life of the student or the school, put some strategy behind how you post. And using hashtags to reach a larger audience is part of that strategy. It also, labels your school. It helps you to understand, helps others to understand you're a viable option in that category, in that course category. And you should always combine hashtags from all different levels and categories. So level 1, 2, and 3 in terms of the amount of people they reach, as Natalia said, but also those 5 categories. And then always make sure your hashtags are relevant. You said that more than once, and I think it's such an important element, because if people are searching, for example, for information on a specific topic, and if they search by hashtag, you want to make sure if your post shows up, it serves exactly what you've said it would, if you will. That just makes a better organic, authentic connection with the user across social media.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's the thing to stretch. Just make sure they're relevant, because you don't want to reach just anyone. You want to reach the right people.
Right. Tell us about this download template that you provided. It's in the downloads, the handouts in your GoToWebinar menu bar. So any attendee can download this. It's in the handouts. But tell us about this sheet you provided, Natalia.
Yeah, so it's basically, so if you don't want to go and do your hashtag research every single time you're creating a post, you can create a bank of hashtags. So just take one day, do your research, and then see which, so like there's all 3 levels on the column to the left, and then there's all the categories, right? So just choose, say, for instance, location, which hashtags go on level 1, which hashtags go on level 2, which hashtags go on level 3. And then when you're creating your post, just, of course, see which of those hashtags are more relevant, and then just come up with your own mix. And then you can keep updating this Excel sheet as you wish.
It's a super relevant tool. And the other handout that we have available for you is this social media self-assessment checklist that we've given you an idea of just some of the types of categories it checks for you, and it's much more in depth than just the things you see here. So feel free to download that and put it to use. We hope these resources are helpful for you. And it's before we answer questions, just want to let you know, if you have additional questions above and beyond what we cover here and above and beyond hashtags, we can get deeper into hashtags, or we can talk about your social media strategy overall for your school. Please reach out to me or to Laura. If Laura's on the West Coast, so if you're on the West Coast of North America, then she can help you there, and we'd be happy to answer your questions. Speaking of questions, we would like to kind of tap in. So the first question, please add them in if you have additional questions that you haven't typed in the question box yet. But the first one here is, when should you use capital letters or not? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so you can use them as you wish. As I mentioned earlier, I like the camel case. So just using capital letters at the beginning of each word, because that makes it easier to read. You can use lower caps for the whole hashtag. But again, if it's 2 or 3 words, it might just be harder on the eyes. So just adding a capital letter every beginning of the word, I personally find works best, because I feel more attracted to it. And if it's just all caps too, I find it's too much. So I think camel case option works best.
Another question that came in earlier was regarding the use of hashtags on Instagram, that they can be used on stories, for example, but to a different level, right? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so you can use up to 30 on feed post. I believe it's 30, but for stories, I think it's just one. So that doesn't mean you can only use one. It's just that only one will be discoverable. Because you know, when you go in stories and you type text, you can add hashtags just typing it. But then on Instagram, if you go on the features button, there is a hashtag feature, and that feature you can only add it once. So you need to select that one hashtag that you want your story to be categorized on.
Got it. Awesome. Well, listen, we want to be mindful of your time and stay on time. We've reached about the end of ours. I want to thank you, Natalia, for your time and for your expertise. I appreciate your help today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
And thanks to all of you who attended. We look forward to seeing you next month at our webinar, so look for that information in your email as well. Thanks and have a great afternoon.